Happy Wednesday, May 27th, or whatever day you happen to be watching on. Welcome in. I'm Ross, and this is RossRealTalk. This is, in fact, our first episode. Congratulations on being here. This is a bi-weekly segment on professional growth through various topics on life, faith, finance, career, and family. The aim of this segment is to help you reach your life, professional, and career goals and create a community of people around you to support you through your journey. I'll also bring subject matter experts onto the show to discuss some of the current 30 topics I have laid out for you over the next 60 weeks. This week, we lay the foundation with storytelling. You might find this an odd place to start, but quality storytelling is one of the principal skills used in both our personal and professional lives. This concept is one that directly ties into half of our currently planned subject matter. I personally consider storytelling to be one of the most important foundational skills to develop as a professional. Why? Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of human communication. Ancient people wrote their stories on cave walls, both as a way of teaching and as a means for success and survival. They told stories around the campfires and lodges as a way of entertainment and building community. They used them as a way of passing down history and tradition to their descendants, allowing the future to benefit from the cumulative minds of the past long before the invention of written language. We, as a society, continue to tell stories today for all those reasons in one way or another. And today, you and I will discuss what makes a good story, how good storytelling can enhance you professionally, and why storytelling is an important skill to learn. In the fall of 2019, I was at Notre Dame working on my MBA. I remember getting feedback from an employer about a group of fellow students. He probably thought I worked at the university. That, or he wanted to see my classmates succeed. He looked me right in the eye, not knowing my name, and said to me, "I'm kind of pissed off right now. None of these kids knows how to tell a dang story." Imagine for a moment you're sitting in an interview for a job you want. Your heart rate's up because you're nervous. You shook hands with your interviewer, but you really can't read them. Do they like you? Have you made a good first impression? And then the first question comes. Tell me about a time when... Are you prepared to answer the question adequately? The formula for telling a good story has been the same since the beginning of oral history. First, set the stage. Your audience knows who all of the characters are and enough about them to care about their story. That's the goal. The main character or characters will be different in any story, but the premise stays the same. You need to convey enough information about the main character or characters to effectively tell the story about their adventure. Whether that story is farm boy blows up intergalactic space station or college student writes software to count dandelion flowers in a batch of 1,000 images, one of those stories probably could be a 2-hour movie. The other is 5 to 10 minutes or 3 written paragraphs. And they both follow the same format if told well. By the way, if you didn't get it, the second one is how you answer that interview question. So now the stage is set. The adventure can occur. This is where all of the excitement happens. The boy or girl leaves the comfort of their home, faces a trial or series of trials which ultimately result in success. In order to do this properly, the introduction to the characters and the beginning of the adventure must blend together. Setting the stage must also introduce the adventure. We see a great example of how to do this in relating to Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. Dickens introduces Scrooge's adventure by relating another well-known story to his audience, Shakespeare's Hamlet. Now we know the story of Scrooge, visited by the ghost of his friend Marley and 3 ghosts of Christmas. We may not remember the story of Hamlet, but Dickens's audience certainly would have. And so to blend the setting of the stage and the adventure, Dickens reminds his audience, if we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts than there would be any other middle-aged gentleman turning out in a breezy spot, say St. Paul's churchyard, for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. In hearing that single sentence related to you, you know now both the story of Hamlet and Scrooge, or at least how their adventures begin. Now you as a storyteller have a job of sticking to the narrative. If you're Dickens, tell the story of Scrooge's redemption and no other story, giving the context needed to relate to your audience. If you're Homer, tell the story of how Odysseus gets home. If you're the ancient Hebrews, tell the story of how Moses gets the Hebrews freed from captivity in Egypt, all while giving enough context to keep the audience engaged. Now that you've told your story, it's time to finish it. The sea closes in on Pharaoh's chariots and charioteers. The intergalactic space station is destroyed. Scrooge is buried alive in his own coffin by the ghost of Christmas future. The conflict is resolved. The resolution of the story is what storytelling calls the climax. The story's over. Or is it? No. Every story must come to a conclusion. To make that conclusion isn't difficult, but good storytellers will do it well. Because while it may not be part of the story you want anyone to remember, doing it wrong will make it the only part of the story people remember. Imagine, for a moment, if you would, that I ended this episode here. It would be like those action shows on television where the main protagonist is in the crosshairs of a sniper who pulls the trigger. You hear the bang, see the muzzle flash, the main character is hit, seemingly dies, and the credits roll. Your mind screams, "What?" And perhaps you do as well. You're uncomfortable. You have no idea what's supposed to happen because while the conflict has been in some ways resolved, you don't feel the resolution to the story. Did they mourn the main character's death? Is he or she really dead? Maybe they're setting up a sequel. None of that actually matters at this point. And neither does the story you just heard, read, or watched. You invested way too much time in something that now feels entirely unfinished and unresolved. Things don't go back to normal. And to tell a good story, things do have to return to some state of normalcy. This part of your story, while least remembered if done correctly, is the most important part and is also where most storytellers fail. Take the time to get it right, keep it short and sweet, and in the words of my father to a younger me, land the damn plane. Okay, so to conclude our story, we'll revisit that there are 4 main parts of a story. 1, the introduction. Set the stage and tell your audience who the main character is and give them the context they need to understand the story. 2, introduce the conflict or problem to be solved and tell the audience how the main character solves it. Step 3, actually solve the problem. This is the climax of the story. It is the pinnacle of excitement. If your story gets turned into a movie, this is the part where you hope John Williams is composing the musical score. And finally, number 4, finish the story. Bring Alice back from Wonderland. Wonderland's a weird place, and your audience really doesn't want to stay there. All right, so where do we go from here? Over the next year, we'll cover a variety of professional topics. Many of those topics will revisit this episode of storytelling. This is me setting the stage. Next, we'll finish setting the stage with an idea passed on to me by a friend and mentor on compounding interest and how we can make significant gains in our lives if we average 1% better every day. I also invite you to join me in other online communities that I'm a part of and own and ask questions if you have them. I hope you enjoyed our show, and I look forward to welcoming you back in 2 weeks for our next episode on 1% growth. Thank you for being here. Keep looking up.